Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected Russia's claims that the besieged port city of Mariupol has been captured. The remaining Ukrainian fighters, as well as around 1,000 civilians, are currently still trapped in the steelwork plant where they've been surrounded by Russian troops. Now, it comes as a Ukrainian official says Russian forces have seized more than 40 villages in the Donbas region as the Kremlin offensive in the east of Ukraine continues. Abby Smitten reports.
A city destroyed. Mariupol steelworks, the final base of the Ukrainian resistance. In its labyrinth of tunnels and bunkers, the last of the fighters remain.
We are under constant air bombing and fire of multiple rocket launchers and gun artillery. While we're here, Mariupol remains under control of Ukraine. Mariupol was and will stay Ukrainian, no matter what they say.
Around 2,000 people are still thought to be in the steelworks. It's believed at least half of them are civilians. Mariupol has been under near constant bombardment since the start of the Russian invasion. President Putin has claimed his forces have seized control of the city, ordering his soldiers to surround the Azovstal steel plants. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has refused to give in. In an address last night, he said the fight for the city was not over. The Russian forces wouldn't win.
They can only postpone the inevitable, the time when the invaders will have to leave our land, including Mariupol, the city that continues to resist Russia, regardless of what the occupiers say about this.
Ukrainian officials say Russian forces have continued to attack the eastern Donbas region. More than 40 villages have reportedly been seized. With the Orthodox Easter weekend approaching, there had been hopes that a ceasefire could be agreed, a moment of reprieve for millions. But President Zelensky says Russia has rejected the call for a truce.
This demonstrates very well how the leaders of this state actually feel about the faith, about one of the most joyful and important holidays. But we keep hope. Hope for peace, hope that life will conquer death.
What should have been a celebration for the millions of Orthodox Christians. Instead, this Sunday will mark 2 months of war, 2 months of fighting, destruction and loss. Abby Smitten, BBC News.
Let's speak to our correspondent, Joe Inwood, who's in Kyiv. And Joe, first of all, to that steelworks, that giant facility in Mariupol. What's the latest? Is the resistance still holding, as far as you know?
Well, we had been expecting, if the fighting had continued as it was planned initially, there to have been a bloody battle going on all of yesterday and all of today. But in the end, as we reported yesterday, President Putin called that off. He said that the cost would be too high in men and that he could seal off the steelworks. Now, we have had reports that there's still incoming fire, there's still bombardment. We understand from the fighters trapped inside that some roofs have collapsed as a consequence of bunker-busting bombs, and so they say some of their people are inside, trapped under the rubble. They didn't know how many. Now, a couple of days ago, a major in the Ukrainian army was saying that they were running low on supplies, on ammunition, but also on food and water. And maybe that's why we've seen this change of tack from the Kremlin, a move away from trying to take the compound by force and towards trying to starve them out. And that, it seems, is what is going to be happening over the coming days and weeks, the process of slow starvation. Now, that may, in turn, force the Ukrainians to change their strategy and try and push out from within, although that is speculation. We don't know what kind of state they're in and what they're going to be able to do.
And Russia is saying that although that facility is still holding out, Joe, it has taken the city of Mariupol, and I suppose along with that, the access along the south coast through the city that it's so wanted.
Yes, although that is something that President Zelensky denied in his address last night. He says that the Russians can declare victory if they want, but as long as the fighters of Mariupol are holding out, well, the city has not fallen. And this, I guess, is why it's important from the Russian point of view that they seal off the steelworks, because you've got determined, experienced fighters inside. They will be in a bad way, but these are people who have fought the Russians and their proxies for many years. If they are not contained within, well, you could see sort of partisan fighting and insurgency, as we've seen in other parts of Ukraine, and that could disrupt those supply lines. So I think that's probably why President Putin is saying the steelworks need to be sealed off so completely.
Now, even Ukraine is saying that there have been Russian gains in the east of the country. You have been in that part of Ukraine recently. What do we know about what's happened over the last few hours?
Well, we have that report, as you were saying earlier, of 40 villages fallen. We don't know exactly which ones those are. As you mentioned, I was there just a few weeks ago and seeing these fortifications. They are incredibly well dug in, and some of the fighters you see there are incredibly battle hardened. You can see that these are people who are not going to give up without a fight. We have seen some strategic withdrawals, the Ukrainians have said, from certain towns once it became clear there was nothing left to defend. And again, we don't know the form of villages that have been taken and whether they were defensive positions or whether they've decided that the best thing to do would be to retreat to one of the many deep trenches, defensive positions that have been dug right across the region. When we were there, each time you would leave what appeared to be one defensive fortification, you would come back and a mile down the road or so, you saw another, you saw mines being placed. And so there may be withdrawals, there may be advances, but I would suspect that the Ukrainians are not going to be giving up without a serious fight.
Joe, for now, thank you very much. Joe Inwood in Kyiv.